Hello everyone and welcome back to Wargame Red Dragon. We're going to be staying pretty high up on this one. I'm playing as Rotari, which, while it is Finnish, most of you can probably guess what that is standing for, and this was really a tale of two very different sides of the map. So I'm playing as South African Motorized. I'm trying to get up here into Fox and potentially attack there, while my ally Quicksilver is going over to Golf and pushing the other side of the field. So on my end, we're going to have Crippling Depression playing as the Soviets, and then Maple83 turns out he lines up more over here on the left. Before we keep going, I do want to thank you guys for the recent storm of likes on videos a couple days back. When I asked for that, it really did make a difference. So, yeah, very happy for it, very thankful for all the support. Okay, so my intention here was to get into the woods. I have some SASF, I have some Ruakats, I have some Recon Ruakats and all that, and one mistake that I made was probably not supporting as much in Delta as I could. I had SASF back here that I completely forgot to move, so that's really not great. And then as we get up into the woods, there's some Jalos, and it's really just it's a symbol of things to come. So I was hoping I'd have Rovers to take out the Jalos, and my Ruakats get a little bit too hog wild trying to screen up that MI2, so that's going to be a quick retreat before we get into gun range, although I was hoping maybe it would tempt him to go over there just a little bit. In the meantime, I have lots of Milans and Rathel 60s. This was not intended to stay as a group of 4, but the Rathel 60s were meant to provide some good support. So for those of you guys who don't play South Africa too often, the Rathel 60s are basically 20-point short-range mortars, and they can do some pretty serious work when grouped together, so I was hoping to get a couple of kills with them. The Rovers are doing alright, the Ruakats are doing alright, but VDV up in my face was not really what I had wanted. Meanwhile, Quicksilver has a big old column headed right down to Alpha. This is not entirely something you'll see all the time. Usually the fight's over Delta, but I think what Quicksilver was probably headed for was, if you can take Alpha, if you can cut off the reinforcement zone here and threaten Bravo, that really does put the other player on the back foot, and it would allow me to also have a bit more time as BTRTs and Sapri are sort of making their way right through my stuff. Retzel ZT3A1 did pretty good work. This guy, he's 50 points, but for 50 points you get pretty amazing accuracy, if not the most punch. So it was able to screen people out for just a little bit, as my Buffaloes were also sort of screening out those heavier tanks. Caspiers are headed up on that side, and I'm having to clear out a couple of Spetsnaz Gru, who are a little in over their heads. SASF 90 are not the best infantry to infantry because their tertiary isn't a main gun, but honestly I was pretty impressed with how these guys did, particularly when supported by a creative position with a Caspier K-Car, where we let the Spetsnaz Gru engage. I'm actually getting really pounded there by another vehicle, but then that's something that the Apolos was able to take that out, and the Caspier K-Cars provide the supporting fire that I need. Unfortunately, my Buffaloes were taken out, but look at this push into Alpha. This is a thing of absolute beauty to be aspired to, and to be afraid of should you see Quicksilver in your opponent's list. It's VABs, it's a Legion 90, it's a bunch of Scout AMX-10 RC, and even double AMX-10 RC SB. It's a lot of quick moving punch, and supported by lots of recoilless rifle jeeps, that can be really hard to take out. BBL Mistral, meanwhile, is providing scouting and anti-air on the side, and the South African units are providing an endless tide of commentary for the entire match as well. Honestly, why am I even really doing this if they're going to do all the speaking for me? But this is why you need recoilless rifles, this is why you need rate of fire, because BMP2s, I mean, that's 20 points apiece, and we've just traded 2 to 1, so, you know, you lose 2 of these guys, you lose 2 BMP2s, that means the blue 4 player's up by about 20 points, and every little bit just adds value over time. And now you can see the Panzerjäger are out in the middle of nowhere, and that's 20 points of infantry apiece, and they're not going to have a very good day. So you take out the vehicles, you take out a lot. The reason my guys are complaining is because I'm trying to get in here with Parapathfinders. That was my best answer to the Sapri, because these guys do have those 40mm frag launchers, the Y2s, and they are incredibly deadly. Jeez, I swear, you know what? You guys have lost your commentary rights. We're going to switch over to Quicksilver. That way I can have some time to think. Goodness gracious. So, we are going to see different alerts now, but I think that's fine as well, because, I mean, look at this. He has the M201 shooting in, and these, I think, are more BMPs, probably BMP-1s by the look of it. But even they were taken out just by a couple of recoilless rifle shots. Legion moving around, and Commando Marine heading the far way around to Bravo in what was probably a bit of a jerk move, but, you know, what can you do? T-72 M2 Wilkes were spotted, and I called in a Buccaneer to try and handle that just a little bit, and we get 1 kill. 2 kills the Buccaneer. I do love planes with 4 ATGMs for that reason. They can get 1 kill and then move right onto a secondary target. And this is sort of making up for the lack of an early presence in Delta, right? So you can see Maple83 was able to get all the way down here, but we were able to contain it reasonably well through combined arms effort. The Tiger has Barthel's ET3A1, and a creative Buccaneer. However, that is still just, it's proving to be a bit of a mire on my side of the field. So my pair of Pathfinders not really having the best day. Yeah, they're killing Sapri, and I mean, that did about as well as I was hoping for, so a bunch of dead Sapri, but then we don't have the punch to take out BTRTs, and they definitely have the punch to kill my pair of Pathfinders, so we're retreating back, cycling up the Bocop 90, who do have those FT5s, 23 AP power, a little bit of a slower rate of fire at 10 instead of 20, like you see on some of the better infantry units, but it's more than enough for us right now. And I think this really, if we take a look really far back, yeah, I mean, Delta might be lost, but if Charlie can be held, if Alpha can be pushed into, or at least denied, then our opponent's +2 will go away, because India is about to be capped by my Rathel BV, and that will even things out, and then Charlie gives us a +2, Alpha potentially gives us a +4. You'd be surprised how hard it is to attack into this region from the Red Force side of the field right now. I mean, AMX-10s are showing this a little bit. BMP-1 KTs are not cheap, that's 35 points, and the Bushmaster 2 autocannon is worthwhile, but it's not enough to handle Eurocorps armor. In the meantime, Commander Marines were just for a minute spotted there, but it looks like they did also potentially nab a kill, and are now going back in just to farm points off of Maple's deployment zone, which is mean. Like, even I will acknowledge this is mean, but it's good, right? And this is not the nice game of fun and cooking and I don't know, pancakes and rainbows and happiness. This is Wargame, and that Pion PSV is about to figure out the difference between those two situations as the Commander Marine claims 75-point kill. Beautiful, beautiful work. BMP-1s. So at some point your opponent is going to notice, and usually when they do, they bring out a bunch of infantry, but it looks like these BMP-1s weren't noticed either. And that's enough Panzer Jägeri to be trouble, frankly. LRAC F1s should be able to get the other, yeah, here it is. So BTR-50 is BTR-T. He's going to clear out those Commander Marine, but honestly, worth their weight in gold 3 times over. So, pretty good, no complaints there. And this was, so I'm a Sergeant, Quicksilver's Major, we had a Sergeant Major and a Corporal, so we did have a little bit of the ranked experience edge there, but I know for a fact Maple has played far more games than I have, so it's sort of a mixed bag. In the meantime, my Milan teams were doing reasonably well. I think I did mean to unquad stack them, so yes, I can already hear you guys in the comments saying don't do this. On the other hand, they're 10 points apiece. It's 40 points, and Milan's never hit. So this way, hey, we actually hit. That's a, that's a good kill. It's a, what, 35-point kill right there? So that nearly paid for itself, and it's not the first kill either. So if that takes quad stacking to get results, sometimes I'll quad stack to get results. We do also have double Valkyrie. These don't tend to get kills, but they do tend to soften up your targets, panic things, stun things, get some chip damage, and I was really just hoping to discourage Crippling from pushing into those woods again as I was trying to get sight with the Milans on his reinforcement route. So there was a really well-coordinated effort here, but here's the thing. Tiger Had's up there, that's going to be some nice HOT 2 missiles to take out enemy armor, and the Panthers, brutal, 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 brutal. So Sneb rocket pods, 2 HE power, doesn't sound like much, but they have 38 of them and they mulch infantry. It's ridiculous. You can get easily 60 points worth of kills off of one of these guys before you have to go in and resupply. In the meantime, the Wilk is spotted. That's going to be a HOT 2 in the air. No, that's a BTRT. I mean, it's still relatively valuable, 25 points and 1 shot, 1 kill. Sapri down to 4 because they weren't unloaded. You have to just be a little bit sad about that, but maybe possibly some overextension as, no. Jeez. Yes, okay, so the Tiger Had was lost. There was an anti-air counter kill, and that looks like Estrella or Stralza or whatever it is for the finish. I don't really use those, so I don't really know too well. But D80B is pushing me, and this is where you sort of begin to pay for Moto, right? So I wasn't able to get downfield quickly enough. My opponent was able to sort of head me off the pass there, and because I don't have any heavy tanks, I don't have anything that can go toe-to-toe with the T80B, so I am forced to use the Buccaneer Mark 50 to try and eke out a kill here if I can. But I don't know, it's not the best way of doing things, because he's just going to go right back into the smoke, and that was right before the Buccaneer would have been able to fire, so now I was left with a little consolation prize, the Scredget, that I wasn't even able to get. In the meantime, Bocop are pushing up, we're trying to get in there, and there's a reason that the Wargame Bootcamp Wiki will, well, whatever it is, Reddit, some such nonsense, will say try unspec first. It is good, it is more flexible, and it does allow you to handle when you're on the back foot a little bit better than sort of motorized decks. But I'm sure most of you guys know all that stuff. Crotal, people, exclaim that this is one of the best AA pieces in the game, and I would love it if it had just 2 more missiles. So the Crotal out of ammunition, not able to kill the Mi-2 URS, or screen out anything anymore until resupply gets there, or replacement. It doesn't look like a replacement Crotal is on the way, but there is a VLRA Logistique that should be able to, well, provide some more supply to that Crotal, and I think he's actually going to meet him halfway, so some nice micro, nice control there from Quicksilver, but I mean, hey, what else is new? Buccaneer is just circling at this point, but we do get the attention of a MiG-25 PD, and that single kill isn't really going to make up for it. These guys, I mean, they're either hit or miss, but when they hit, holy cow, do they hit. And now we're taking a little bit of counter battery fire. We're both just sitting on opposite ends of these woods, and that has to end at some point, so, yeah, not too surprised by that. What I was hoping to do was I was hoping to get up here and get a side shot on that T-80B that has been inching up and up and up and up and up, and is really just sort of harshing my vibe a little bit, because my Rurikats can't kill him, the Rovers can screen, but they really can't kill him, and I didn't have a great answer for that. I mean, it's a 75-point tank. How do you not have an answer for it? And, well, in the open field, South African Moto doesn't really have an answer outside the Buccaneer, but some nice smoke micro from Crippling is just making that impossible. At least it was. We do get 1 kill there, but not enough to get 2. There is, I think, a turning radius in the Buccaneers, and we do lose the Buccaneer. So planes are often the quickest and not necessarily the most effective answers to certain things. You definitely want more in your arsenal. The Crotal has been resupplied, a lot of resupply left in these logistiques, and if that Mi-24W gets much closer, you should be in danger. Very powerful helicopter and nice defensive play from Maple 83, keeping him alive and basically saying, hey, you're not going to come in between these woods, at least not for a little while yet. So no complaints there. And I think at this point, things are starting to get a little bit contentious in the chat, which is never a good sign. And I just want to stress, if you're ever playing against somebody and they're not the happiest, keep in mind, it's a game people play to have fun. So if you're not having fun, something's wrong is going on. That was a nice Wilk kill there. ATGM Milan F3 teams, of course, do pack a huge punch with 26 AP power, and the standard Wilks won't be able to hold up to that very well at all. In the meantime, my Milans have actually used every single one of their Milans. They've gotten a fair number of kills, besides that last one scoring a kill on a Jalo, so some of the most valuable standard Milans I think I've ever seen. Really just goes to show, hey, they're not entirely worthless, and I'm trying to get a SAML cargo over there to give them more supply, but yeah, it was a bit of a mixed bag. You see my Rurikats taking some fire, and these guys are just waiting, which made them a bad buy because they're not points being used on the field, but I was hoping if I could get through the last of the VDV, we might be able to kill that T-80B with some side shots from FT5s. The issue that I had here with this game was, so first off, I like the Beta 90 buy, which of course I do, I bought it, so I mean that kind of makes sense. But the issue that I had was I wasn't able to keep a constant supply of infantry up and in here grinding through, and because of that I allowed Crippling time to resupply and deny me a force that I really should have controlled probably a good bit before I ended up doing so, and that was really an issue. I also didn't push nearly enough around the right hand side, and that does allow some Spetsnaz crew to get a little bit creative and take out SAMLs, while my SSF or 90 are just trying to hide and not get killed by infantry that's way better at infantry killing than they are. So the Milan F3 has been pushed up. That is going to cause trouble. The Maddies, I like Maddies a lot for their armor piercing, but you kind of have to treat them like M8 AGSs because they have decent accuracy, but not much of a stabilizer, not much armor. At least I don't think they... Actually, no, their stabilizer I think is pretty fine. So F3 gets a shot on the Wilk, but nice smoke micro from Maple 83 is going to be able to keep that online for right now. We'll have to see what else happens. The 25 PD getting a little bit greedy. So he can probably kill the Mirage, no problem. And yeah, it looks like there's a stun. And no, actually, evac ordered, evac Winchester. But he also did take some anti-air, and now that Crotal, if he's lucky, might get him, but it doesn't quite look like it. So here comes a coordinated push, and I just want to see how this goes. I didn't have the chance to do it during the game, and it looks like there's a lot of infantry that could have used a smoke screen sort of in front of the woods. Otherwise, I mean, Ratskas and Korima have nice range, but it's not a miracle, and they are pretty fragile for 15 points, so 5 strength infantry, and the Musty recoilless rifle is not a miracle worker. But the Wilk back there is getting some nice shots. I wish he'd been healed up before he pushed, because this seems like it's the damage from the Milan F3, who's now out of ammunition, but that might just allow this AMX to get a kill, so let's see if it does. Doesn't quite look like it. I think Quicksilver's trying to maintain contact, that's why the Vavs are pushing up, and down to 1 point of strength left. I can't believe that he's getting away. That has to suck. Anyway, we can see a huge reinforcing column coming in now. My Ruakat and Rovers moving up. There's another TADB back here. It takes him out, and it's a little too much for me once again, which is really frustrating. So the ZT3A1, probably the best performance I've ever gotten out of one of these vehicles in this entire game. Just shooting in with those swift ATGMs time and time and time again. Really had no complaints about that at all. Tungushka was also spotted, and I was hoping to fire into that with artillery, so I think I was hoping to get a Rhino, but then he starts moving, so you can see I mark him. But whenever you have that sort of expensive stuff spotted, it's good to move him away, and I overextend a little bit, and we're back to square one on this side of the field, so not exactly ideal. Meanwhile, Alpha is locked down, Bravo is still threatened, Delta is isolated, and if need be, can be countercapped here because there's enough of a hold on this side, it's predictable. So it's not going to hold forever, you will get pounded by howitzers and by cluster. But we have enough of a field position that it's not going to be too much of an issue. Now taking out a +4 of all things, and most of it I do have to say is entirely thanks to Quicksilver, who has been doing a wonderful job on the western side of the map. Okay, so let's take a look just briefly in at, well, let's see. Well, it's interesting. For a lot going on right now, it's a lot of normal stuff, so I don't really know what to point out. Fallschirmjäger getting kill on a T-80 might be a little bit more unusual, but that's just because that Panzerfaust 3 is absolutely dynamite. 24 AP power, 70% accuracy, that's going to get kills like you would not believe. I was kind of impressed that they could get the Sissy as well, but there's a lot of shit coming up. So let's speed through this just a bit. I do want to show you some of the standout units on one side or the other, just because they are a little bit surprising. Not necessarily what you might think. My Beta 90 is going to be screening out that BMPT pretty well, but I did have to be a little bit careful. There was a Tungushka known to be operating back there, so you don't want to have that come in and be a problem. Buccaneer also trying to steal the kill, and doesn't quite manage it. I was so pissed at these guys. I mean, there's no reason for that to just, So, they live by the Buccaneer, die by the Buccaneer, and because I was a little bit late evacing and didn't realize, yeah, he was stunned, we are going to circle around again, and I ended up losing the Buccaneer, which made me very, very unhappy. So, I guess if I had to sum all this up, I would say, don't necessarily rely on the expected tactic. Right, we didn't go in on Delta, but instead, because Quick was able to change the paradigm a little bit and focus on Alpha instead of Delta, Delta ended up not mattering. And you're playing Conquest, you have to play to the +2 zones. They're much more important. They can lock down Delta all they want, and if we have Alpha on their side of the field, it's just going to be game over, and there's not really all that much you can do about it. So, often I feel like in Conquest it's picking where you fight sometimes. That's part of why I like motorized decks so often, is you can get down the field, and then it's just you take it and you hold on for dear life until the game's over. And that's sort of what this felt like a little bit, even though I don't think it was a moto deck, it was just standard Eurocore. It was very much a go down here and then hold until the game is entirely over, which we have at this point managed to do. So, thank you all for hanging around, and well, let's take a look in at the kills and losses. 3480 kills, 2295 losses. I was positive by about 245 or so points, and Quicksilver was positive by about 940, so we both did very well, and in the long grind, if we were deadlocked for Conquest points, I think I would have been able to push through here, given about 10 more minutes or so. So, standout units, and we were looking at Quicksilver. Tiger Had did very, very well, and I think other than that, the Milans did pretty well, and I really want to show you my own, so I kind of messed up there a little bit. I just can't stand how often the South African voice things pop up, it's too much. ATGLM Milan F3 got a Wilk, a Maddie, and a Jalo. This is the one that was super well positioned in the forward part of Alpha, and I think was pretty unexpected at the time. Alright, well, that's it. Thank you guys for hanging around. We'll see you again real soon.